All right, it is 6:37. I'll call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. Please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Rory, will you call roll?
Yes. Councilmember Robinson.
Here.
Gettle.
Here.
Sperry.
Here.
And Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Glover is excused.
Councilmember Glover, I believe, is in Switzerland right now.
Yes.
He told me he was maybe going to attend. I emailed with him earlier today where he said, no, I'm not going to. And I'm glad he's taking the time to enjoy some time with his family. We are going to hear from Chief Larson for the Unified Fire Report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Pleasure to be here. I have a few things to report on tonight. I was going to say I'll be brief no matter how long it takes, but I think I've used that before, right?
It's a classic.
It is a classic. I love it. Well, we do have a construction update on Station 125. The mayor was in board meeting this morning. I think he has a few things he'd like to share with that. So I'll skip by that and mention that we have 3 other fire stations that are undergoing construction. Station 102 in Magna, Station 251 and 253 in Eagle Mountain. Those are progressing along as well as can be expected with the construction delays of material. Our wildland crew, we've had them return from some of the Great Basin area fires. We do have 1 or 2, I believe, still out. The fuels crew has been working on mitigation projects and chipper days events throughout the UFA jurisdiction. That's really helpful to our canyon communities. Recruiting, we had 306 people take the written test. 87 of those have been forwarded to the next step for our recruiting process. The oral interviews have taken place. Background checks are being conducted, and the top 26 to 30 candidates are going to be conditionally offered positions. Recruit camp starts February 1st. That brings back a lot of memories. I think it's okay for me to let you know that Chief Steve Higgs, who was the chief here for Midvale for quite a while, announced his retirement today. December 31st will be his official last day. He's served, I think, 45 or more years in the fire service. A very stellar career. He was my training lieutenant. And as I read through his thing today, it reminded me of a cold December day when I was on top of the fire engine loading hose and we had a blizzard going. The snow was blowing straight across. And it was like the 3rd time we had to do the drill and roll the hose back up and load it and do it again. And we were cold, and I looked across about 40 feet to the station, and standing there in the window was a veteran fire engineer with a hot bowl of chili and a Cheshire cat grin. I'll never forget that. And Steve Higgs, of course, responsible for training and mentoring hundreds of firefighters. So anyway, I wanted to pay a quick tribute to him and really appreciate him.
Chief, when I'm sure that you will, but as those retirement celebrations are planned, will you make sure that we're all in the loop on that so we can all
Absolutely, Mayor. You bet. I will be sure and make that a point to do that.
Thank you.
Let's see. Event season wrap-up. This summer events, as you know, a lot of cities have a lot of events throughout the summer. Midvale, of course, Harvest Days, and the Main Street events that we have. The community, our Information Outreach Division, takes care of staffing those community events. Those events need medical staffing and other support from UFA. Those continue to grow in number each summer. This past season, we saw 99 total events staffed. That includes 2 to 4 personnel, first aid tents, and various apparatus. We spent 1,830 person hours working at those events. 29 were from private companies and organizations that we bill those for. The other 70 were sponsored by our cities and were not billed. These events represent a great opportunity for the crew to get out and interact with the public. I was so happy to see the crews out on the block parties and all the other events that we have. You've got a great group here. They love being involved with your community. I believe that's, oh yes, one more thing. Standards of cover. Last week, Chief Burchett, the 3 assistant chiefs, Chief Robinson, Chief Pilgrim, and Chief Higgs and I met with Matt and your mayor and went over a document called the Standards of Cover. It's a very thick document. We've pulled a lot of data, statistics, demographics from the entire UFA area and from each individual city. We presented kind of the overall scope of the Standards of Cover document and went over Midvale's particular piece in that. We will be presenting that to the City Council in a workshop. I think we decided probably November, December. Just a little bit about it. This document, along with community risk assessment, are elements that we use to identify risks in each of the communities, and that we use to identify risks that are specific to Midvale City. We identify those risks that the community faces, as well as potential response gaps that might exist and currently within operations, and we can use these documents to enhance our communications with your city, and then use the Standards of Cover document in conjunction with our strategic plan and budget process to help us bridge any identified gaps. We're looking at response times, placement of apparatus for the best service, depending on where the volume of calls are. It's a great document, and we look forward to digging into that and presenting that to you. And as time goes on, the data collection is just going to get better and better to help enhance our service. So we're really excited about it. That's all I have. Are there any questions for me? Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the public comment section. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for public hearing on the agenda tonight may address the City Council at this point by stepping to the microphone and giving their name for the record. Do we have any public comments? Come on up. And if you would just be sure to state your name for the record. Thank you.
All right. My name is Cassandra Sharp. I am the mother of 5 boys and a resident of Midvale. I recently took a walk down Midvale Main Street with my husband and 2 of my sons to view the murals. And while most of them were very entertaining, I ended up being very shocked and appalled by the sexual nature of the very prominent mural on the south side of the building at 7607 South Main Street. It is of a naked male and female. One of the naked female's large breasts is clearly visible. This is indecent and verges on softcore pornography, in my opinion. And I'm sorry to be explicit, but just because her nipple is barely covered does not make that okay. If people really want to view this kind of art, they can hang it in their own homes or go to a museum, Las Vegas, or the internet. But it should not be found in public view in Midvale. The other very disturbing feature about the female in this mural is that, to me, her face looks more childlike than womanly. That is confusing and disturbing. And it gives the impression of a naked child riding piggyback on a naked man. I cannot comprehend how this picture passed the review process and was cleared to be painted, and that an artist was paid to paint nudity on our historic Main Street. With events like Halloween on Main Street, the Children's Entrepreneur Farmers Market, and other Main Street festivities, attracting families with children to Main Street has clearly been the focus. And if the goal of the Main Street project is for it to be a family-friendly atmosphere, I don't see how this mural fits in with that goal. Are we going for slutty, skanky, or for a classy, family-friendly kind of experience? I want to feel proud to show off our Main Street, but something needs to be done about this highly objectionable mural. How about the artist getting rid of the naked breast and adding some clothing? I would like to be able to take my teenage sons and my grandchildren and my aged mother and walk down Main Street without running into such indecent exposure. Thank you. And I would like this statement to be on the public record.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, are there any other public comments?
My name's Wayne Sharp, and I actually have two comments. My first one is to the Public Works. Thank you. I have a thank you for you. He's like, uh-oh, what did we do right? But on the curbs on the intersection of Main Street and Lenox got painted red here a few weeks ago. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that intersection, but it's on Main Street and the speed limit's 30. So people are pretty much going 30, maybe 35. But the problem is that the cars, for years, the vehicles are parking right up to the corners. So when you try to pull out, you can't see the cars coming at a pretty good speed. I actually bought paint, was going to do it myself, and when I went to do it, the guys were out there painting. So I just want to say thank you for that, and I would imagine the police department is grateful for it also. It's easier for them to get out on the Main Street.
Yes, some of that thanks should probably go to the chief. They were the catalyst in getting that started.
Okay.
So.
I'll bring the gallon to the police department then, or to you guys. So thank you for doing that. It's made a huge safety difference on that intersection. My other comment is pretty much just echoing what my wife said about the mural. I probably should have read hers first. So I actually printed my comments also so that I would not get distracted or get too emotional about it. The mural on the corner of 7607 South Main Street is pornography related. When I first saw it, I was shocked. The naked female's face looks like a young girl's face, and her naked bum looks like a baby's bum about to be fondled by the portrayed naked man. This mural is borderline child porn, and I don't want it in my community. If they want it inside their building and out of public view, that is up to them. Now, City Council, and I know you also serve on the RDA board because this might be an RDA issue, but it's also a City Council issue. This moment could be a critical moment for the future of Midvale's downtown image. If this mural is allowed to remain as is, it could and most likely will lead to inviting other porn-related murals and material to enter the downtown area. Now, I'm not here to discuss the negative effects of porn on individuals or the community. I am here to ask you to take a stand for our city by sending the message we do not tolerate or endorse porn-related material in the public view. If people want it in their private space, that is their choice. Having served on the City Council and the RDA board, I know this can be a difficult and possibly controversial issue, but please have this mural removed or replaced with something more appropriate for a family-friendly environment and not porn-related. Thank you. So Rory, do you want these for the
Sure,
record, or
that'd be much
does it just
easier.
go? I know it's recorded, but
That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Make mine easy.
Okay, any other public comments? Rory, did we have any online comments?
No, we did not.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to council reports. Councilmember Robinson,
I have nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
thank you. Councilmember Gettle,
Oh, thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to thank Public Works for 2 water main breaks on Friday when, Glenn, you were out of town, I believe. Bad day to not have cell phone service. But it got done relatively quickly, both of them. I know my particular community on the west side was affected by the first water main break, and wanted to extend my thank yous to you for that, getting on that as quickly as you did. Also wanted to thank the police department as well. We had some interesting incidents over the past week in Midvale. Maybe the chief can speak about them next meeting, but I know the 16-year-old who was unfortunately murdered on Wasatch, was it? Not a lot of info about that yet, but I know those incidents are very difficult for our police staff. So I wanted to thank you guys for what you did there, and we are looking forward to hearing more details about what happened. And I think, as it was pointed out to us, everything was kind of contained, but there were obviously a lot of scared folks in that neighborhood, Lenox and Maine and Wasatch. So thank your folks for that as well. Other than that, I did want, this seems to be my quarterly reminder, the new development in my neighborhood. We've had some questions about the water and soil quality there, and I've asked for a report from the city manager. And I did get some report that was forwarded. The report was a couple of years old, and it honestly had some findings that were concerning to me as a layperson. Reading an EPA report's not the easiest thing in the world, but it did mention some of the water back there was known to be contaminated, and there were efforts in place to make it less contaminated, so that's great. But also, the report that was forwarded to me a few months ago was, I think, at least a year or two old. So I would like to request that our person, who we always tell people that we have a person from the EPA or who works with the EPA who's on site monitoring the soil and water, I would like that person to come to us and explain those findings to us if we could get that in a workshop or a public meeting.
Yeah, I was pretty sure I gave you the most recent quarterly report from him at that time when you requested it, so we'll make sure we get you that,
Okay.
and then we can have him
Yes,
come in.
and you did do that, so thank you. But it was over a year old, and like I said,
I'm sorry, you meant it's over a year ago that you asked for it?
No, the report itself, like the findings were not from 2021 or 2022, as I recall. And as I said, the findings that were in there to a layperson, number one, kind of difficult to read, but number two, I could read some of it and understand what they were saying, and some of what they were saying is that the water in the soil is known to be contaminated, and there are efforts underway right now to mitigate those issues. So I want to make sure, for instance, at the end, excuse me, towards 7th West, there's a body of water that they said in that report is contaminated. And before we put, hundreds of more people even closer to that body of water, I would like the person, representative from the EPA, to tell us that that is safe to do.
Okay.
And it should be easy for them to do that because we are already putting people there. So I would just like the peace of mind that the most recent report that found that there were some deficiencies, either show us that those deficiencies are being worked on and have improved, or we need to maybe think about making sure that they are improved before we put hundreds of more people next to it. And that's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
thank you. Councilmember Sperry,
Yeah, two things, Mayor. One,
I've been getting some other complaints of the traffic light on South Union Avenue and heading into the Hillcrest entrance. I know they did change as far as the right turn and straight, and now it's you go straight and turn left, so that worked. But I've been getting complaints that now the light is off, and so it's causing confusion as far as people not knowing when to go, honking. I don't know if we can put some additional, if we can work with UDOT on looking at the light and maybe getting some signs on the semaphore and maybe back so that people understand the lanes, how they, how they're supposed to move in those two lanes. So I haven't personally gone through it in the morning. It's mostly during the morning with the school traffic. But it's really that light of going straight into Hillcrest and turning left is where I'm hearing some issues. The second issue is, thank you to the Sharps for the comments on the mural. I know that everybody can have their opinion on what art is, and I don't think that's necessarily your intent to come and start a debate on what's art. But I agree that, for me, and I know I expressed this, before, that particular mural, I don't know that, we didn't have that image, right, when we approved the artist, I don't think. We had some samples. Right. And when that came in, I remember just saying, I didn't think that image conveyed the message that I was comfortable with on Main Street. I was expecting to hear a lot more complaints after our festival. But I don't know if anybody else heard this. You're the only ones that have come publicly to talk about it. But that's, I kind of feel the same way, just seeing the images that it portrays. I don't know that that's necessarily the message that I want Midvale to convey. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown?
Yeah, I'd also like to thank the Sharps for coming in. I've had a few people reach out to me about it. When I kind of engage, I think a lot of people have sort of no feelings either way. I have a sort of a much different hang up with them. We had a whole committee meeting that, like me and Wayne, not Wayne Sharp, to confuse people, to look over artists, sort of pick images, and then we sort of looked through some things, picked some things, and then it was sort of presented to council, and it felt like none of that was what was actually painted on that wall. So for me, my biggest hang up is it shouldn't have gotten any city or RDA funding or whatever, because that's even more inappropriate to me, to be like, we're going to do this and do something different. Whether that's offensive or not, I will not even get into that debate, because that's like secondary to them not doing what we thought they were going to do. And if the owner of that building wanted to pay for that and it meets our guidelines, I don't know if there's much we can do, to be honest with you, and we should just say fine. But as far as, our portion of it, that's been bugging me since the beginning, and I guess I should have brought it up sooner, and I sort of mentioned that to Nate, but, now that someone else has complained about something different, I definitely think, I don't know if we've paid them yet or how that's worked, but they shouldn't have been.
And I'm not sure, there was some discussion on that same topic, and I don't know right offhand. Same thing is that I haven't really heard any, you did bring that up. Yeah. We had some discussion on it. I'm not sure if we proceeded with that payment, but also, this is also really the first sort of significant public complaint that I've heard on it, so I wasn't really prepared on this particular one. Yep. I had actually heard more complaints about other murals than that one. So, so I will look into what our status is on that one, but I know we were discussing whether we were going to proceed with that or not, since they didn't do exactly what they had shown us.
Yeah, because it's hard, because we were like, hey, we're going to make this committee. I was very excited to be on it.
It's interesting because I was on the committee to pick the one, overstock, the parking garage. Yeah. And if they would have submitted, and like you, I'm not going to say whether it's controversial or not, but it's just not something I wouldn't imagine that any committee would have picked. If they saw that image, it's not it's not good. You know, that's my opinion of it. And now directly across the street, they've put like, you know, the Angel of Death on the other side. I don't know if you've seen that one yet, but you know, same artist, and it's just a very macabre kind of feeling on that, in that alley now. So I just don't know if they didn't give us choices, or if we chose that one, then that's our fault. But
Well,
if
it was
they,
supposed to be like this Greek, you know, sort of this like Greek, for some insight, like Greek god, Greek goddess sort of
Yeah.
thing, where they were going to use, you know, the texture from the building, where there's going to be like cracks in it and stuff, so it looked like statues. Like he has a cool one that's like Zeus, this like a Zeus sort of thing. So we all thought it was going to be something that was, you know, a little more, I guess, Greco-Roman to that extent, and I don't see it in that, but it was just hard because Paul, he, you know, who used to be on city council, you know, he picked the wraps for the boxes. Remember, he was on that committee and he loved it and felt like he had a lot of sort of insight. I feel like Councilman Gettle knew what he was getting with the Overstock one.
I mean, we literally chose it, you know, through
Like that image.
through a voting process.
Yeah, and so this one was like, and then he started painting. I feel like before we even brought it to council, right? And so I have bigger issues with the process. You know, I respect what they've said. I grew up around art, so I get it's very subjective. But does it meet our community standards? I'm guessing.
It doesn't violate any of the specific things that would have us get rid of it. And then we also run into, it's like with the mural, the Angel of Death.
Where's that at?
Right,
Just on the other side. I don't know that it's Angel of Death.
It's
We probably
it's,
should be careful.
it's
The-
the thing that carries the scyther.
But where? Yeah, yeah.
Whatever.
Just opposite it on the wall.
Oh, okay.
And that was something that they did, but then we get into these issues that if we start to say that if it doesn't violate a community standard, and we go in and say you can't do that, but you can do that, then we start to get into where we're addressing issues of content, and
First
that's a First Amendment.
Right. Right, so that's why I'm trying to be judicial with my response on it. However, I don't want to pay for it, because that's not what we got, right? Because I don't mind, you know, being content neutral or whatever, like you're supposed to, as long as we, you know, say this is what it is, because we could have said we don't like this, and if the building owner did it, then I could say to Wayne, like, hey, I get you don't like it, we can't do anything about it, you know, it meets the community standards or whatever, and they paid for it. But now we're in this weird spot where it looks like we approved it, when I would, like, under oath say that that's not what any of us expected, by like a close margin, right? Like, so not like colors are different, so it is a weird spot for us, I think, and so, at least if we can look into that side of it, so I can at least confidently say, like, yeah, we didn't vote for this, right? Because right now it feels like we kind of did, kind of didn't. That's my thoughts.
Thank you.
And, no, I'm just kidding, go ahead. I'm done.
Sure you are. All right, for my report, I have several things. The first one is for the library update. I believe I talked about this 2 weeks ago, in that if we do not get a tax increase to the library services by the end of next year, then our library will be start the process of being shut down. That is what the county has told us. Last week, the county council did vote to go into truth and taxation this year for the library system. So that public hearing is December 6th. For me personally, I'll be meeting with our county council members to express the importance that our library holds in our community. And I know that there's some other groups that operate in our city. I think the Road Home's a fair example that would use that source. And so for me, I'm going to start the process too of trying to make sure that our county council knows not only the importance for me, but from these other groups, just so you all are aware, and if you want to be involved in that process at all, as we go through this leading up to December 6th, again, for that public hearing. For the UFA update that Chief Larson alluded to, so just on our Station 125 here that is nearing completion, at this point we have it that October 14th will be the construction completion date. That is not the grand opening date, that is just when the construction will be completed and it will be handed over to UFA. At that point, UFA still needs to move in, and they said that they expect now that opening to be sometime in November. But just so we're all aware on how that's going. For the Unified Fire Service area, the taxing district, just so you all know, it has been decided on that board that at this point we do not plan, their calendar year ends at the end of the year, and so we just decided to not go into truth and taxation for that, for UFSA this year, but it is very likely that we will need to next year. For Unified Police Department, to update you all, last week we had a finance committee, we had a full board meeting last week where we did two important things in this process. One is that, so we passed a fund balance policy. This was part of the reforms that we pushed forward. Ultimately what that does, and I'm happy where that landed, is that both in the precincts and the shared services fund balance, they set a minimum fund balance of 8.5% and a maximum fund balance of 15%. Really the big win here on this is that we, the original draft did not have this next part in it, and through negotiations with the board, we got this in here, that anything over the 15%, the individual communities will be able to get that, essentially cut a check, I cannot speak, returned into their general fund, or used to offset their member fee for the next year. So again, both in our precinct, if our precinct is over 15%, we can have that returned to us or have it offset our member fee. And then same thing with the shared services. We can have that returned back to us or offset the member fee, and that will happen at the rate at which we contribute to shared services, which is 18.15% of the total. So that's the rate that we would get that back at. The second part of that is our organizational review. Again, this was also part of our reforms. So at our last board meeting, we did approve $100,000 to this organizational review through the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the IACP. Going through that process, wanted to make sure that the board had the ability to ask the questions to this independent organization to be able to provide clarification when that organization had questions for us, and provide guidance on what they should be looking into, such as shared services. And so what happened was that the board decided to create a subcommittee to be in charge of this process, and I was appointed as the chair of the subcommittee. So again, they've approved the $100,000 to hire them. That is all starting, and that should be officially all in process here pretty shortly. And again, I'll lead the subcommittee on that process. And I believe that's all I have. Are there any questions on this? Okay, go ahead, Matt.
Sure. Most of the issues that I had intended to discuss have already been discussed one way or another. I do just want to also thank the Public Works crew for the work that they did with regards to the leaks on Friday. They were working on those from 9 until 3 to 4 a.m. I heard 3 and 4 a.m. that night. And I think that that's one of those things that I know can be inconvenient when we have to turn off the water for folks, but I don't know that they realize how much work always goes into making sure that we have good, clean water when we need it most of the time, and most of the time, all of the time. But that, anyway, so I'm just appreciative of the work that they did, and I'm hoping that that isn't any kind of indicator of what kind of season we're going to have coming up as the weather starts to change. So please express that to them. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you for you and your team. Okay, moving on to department reports. We should have just called you up here to thank you. We're going to hear from Glenn Kennedy.
First, let me just say thank you for passing on the gratitude. It does mean a lot to the crews. There were a number of staff, and some of them were out there for about 16 hours. So yeah, it was a long day, but we are almost wrapped up. State Street water leaks can be tricky sometimes. Sometimes water leaks lead to other water leaks. I was explaining this to Matt a little bit earlier. When you make changes to the system, pressures change, water switches directions, and I'm guessing that's probably what caused the second one. Now to move on to some more positive things. Last report I touched on, we had Osha Inspection come out. Last Thursday, we wrapped up the final items that we needed to check off. We held a 3-hour safety afternoon, went over our HAZCOM plan, taught how to read SDS sheets, which are safety data sheets on all the chemicals, down to sunscreen level. We're required to have those sheets. Went over our confined space plan. They just wanted a few tweaks made to that. And then I went over the overall public works safety program and policy. So it was a really good training, and some positive things came out of that. CIP list update. During the budget process, we had requested funds to build new salt hangers. Those are about 90% complete, and the budget was $12,000. We are looking at about $6,000, so it came in well under budget. And I just want to thank Jason Bryan in the storm department for his welding capabilities. He saved the city a lot of money. Very talented welder. And then lastly, just wanted to say that we have made 4 new hires, which has been terrific. Jacob Roberts in water, Antonio Andre in streets, Matt Highland in streets, and then Trey Cox is the van driver. I think we got some quality folks, and one of the drivers for that, in my opinion, was the significant COLA increase that has helped out immensely in our recruiting. So just wanted to say thanks for that. And that's my report. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Glenn. All right, moving on to our consent agenda. Just one item. Consider minutes of September 6th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Rory, will you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Sperry.
Aye.
Robinson. Aye. Brown.
Yes.
And Gettle.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. Moving on to our action item of the night. Consider ordinance number 2022-014, an ordinance amending the general plan to include moderate income housing element. We'll hear from Maggie.
Hello again, everyone. So some of what I'm talking about tonight might sound familiar. We went through this same process in 2019, but the state has updated the code, so we need to make some revisions to our moderate income housing plan, or element, as they call it. So in 2019, the Midvale City Housing Plan was adopted, and as an amendment to the general plan, it included 4 moderate income housing strategies, is what the state calls them, and a 5-year implementation plan for each of those strategies. They recently, this year, updated the code. They reduced the strategies, the list of strategies that we could choose from 26 to 24. Many of those were just combined into one, and the language was changed in all the strategies as well. So they also, one of the things they included was a requirement to develop a stationary plan for municipalities with fixed guideway public transit stations, which we are. So because they updated the strategies, we now need to go back and select new strategies and include those in our moderate income housing plan. and we're required to select 4 at a minimum. But because we also have to include a station area plan, that adds another strategy. And we've decided to add 1 additional strategy to receive priority transportation funding from UDOT. What that means exactly, they're not quite sure yet, but we're going to go for it anyways because
Why not?
Affordable housing is very important to us, of course. And I've included a 5-year implementation plan for each of these strategies. And I just added that this report is due on October 1st of this year. So we've sort of laid it out in phases. So the first phase, like I mentioned, October 1st, we have to amend the general plan to include the new selection of strategies and the implementation plan. And then by the end of the fiscal year, we want to continue to update that based on new data. So, for example, the 2019 housing plan was based on 2016 census data, and we have new census data from 2020. So we want to analyze that and update the plan as needed to move forward for the next 5 years. And this is the list of the 6 strategies that we've selected, and this was a collaborative effort between community development, the planning department, and the RDA. There was quite a few strategies on the list that we could not select because since 2019 we've accomplished them. And so that's another reason why we've had to go back and select new. We're basically starting over. So unless you all have any questions or would like to discuss anything.
How many of those were in the, I know the wording has changed some, but how many of those were in the housing plan that was approved before?
How many of
the strategies that are on that list of 6 were already strategies in the previous plan?
That's a good question. To be honest, okay, so in 2020, we reported on 4 strategies, which was our minimum requirement. But in the housing plan that we developed, I think we almost added all the strategies.
That's my understanding, is that all of the strategies that are in the housing plan are in the 6. So we've already approved those in the...
So we're fine, right? So we're fine? Right?
No, we're not fine. We have to update it
Yes.
with the current language and stuff. But,
And we have to select 6.
And we have to select 6, but we already had versions of those in the other plan that's been approved. So this
Yes.
update just brings the language up to date with code.
Yes.
And makes it so that we're just in compliance, but it doesn't change any of the strategies that had essentially been approved 2 years ago. Is that fair? 3 years ago?
Sure.
Okay. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah, it's, yes.
I would make the motion, but I just wanted to ask Lisa if we need to suspend the rules to pass this motion.
I think so. That was mentioned.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
Let's.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
And this just went through Planning Commission, so I don't know if that's something you all need to be aware of as well, that they recommended it to the council.
That's good to know. Mayor, I move that we suspend the rules and recommend approval of the general plan amendment as provided in Exhibit A.
Do we not need to like say ordinance number or anything like that? Or is that fine?
I think it's in Exhibit A.
That's all?
No, I think you should reference that.
Yeah, it's in the.
But that's not.
Oh, sorry, this is from the Planning Commission. I think this is all that they needed, so apologies, I didn't give you
That's
the
okay.
full
We'll get it right.
motion. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I move that we suspend the rules and recommend approval of ordinance number 2022-014, an ordinance amending the general plan to include a moderate income housing element.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Rory, will you call roll?
Yes. Councilmember Robinson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
And Sperry.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That passes.
Okay, thank you all.
All right, moving on to our discussion item of the night. Discuss 2022 to 2028 interlocal agreement with Salt Lake County for UPDES median campaign cost sharing. Keith.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As I'm sure you're all aware, we are under the requirements of the Phase 2 of the Clean Water Act. We've been that way for going on 20 years. I think it really came into effect in 2003. So, in fact, Wayne, just before he left, turned and mentioned to me that he said, I remember when you first got up and started talking about this, and said it's only going to grow and grow, and which it has. So anyway, part of our requirement is that we provide some public education and outreach for the residents and citizens of the community. One of the ways we do this is through the Salt Lake County Stormwater Coalition. It's a group of 14 communities that are basically under the same permit and under the same requirements, that pooled their resources, and instead of everybody duplicating effort, the county has taken the lead to produce ads and swag and things that promote clean water. I'm sure you've all seen the We All Live Downstream ads in one form or another. I've even been sitting in the theater and seen an ad scroll through before the movie. So every year they hire a public relations firm to come up with these ads to produce not only visual but also written sort of material that can be distributed to the communities, and all the communities in the valley are able to participate in this, and we're able to get credit for it on our annual report. Anyway, our current contract has expired this year, so we're looking to enter into another interlocal agreement with Salt Lake County. This will be for the years 2022 through 2028. The cost to us per year is $5,479.14. This is up about $500 from our contract or agreement that just expired. That was $5,000 a year. The money has been paid out of the fees that we collect in the stormwater utility and is included in the stormwater budget every year. I will have a resolution for you to consider at your next meeting that will allow the mayor to enter into this interlocal agreement, which will be good, like I said, from this year up through 2028. Are there any questions or concerns? Cool. If not, I would ask if you would like this as an action item next time, or would it be more appropriate on the consent agenda?
I'm fine with it being on the consent agenda.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. All right, our final item for the night, we have a closed session to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, and to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property.
Mayor, I move that we enter a closed